I've read Rimbaud and those poets, and I found those very inspiring, actually. At least I did when I was young and in the age when you find poets inspiring. That was more of a soundtrack to my thoughts. Some of the songs really connect to a certain text or a certain part of the text, while some are more like, you know, stuff that were on the radio, or it's so hard to tell what inspires you, because all of a sudden you have, you know, you can walk around and sing one song for 2 weeks and you realize it's a commercial jingle, and suddenly you have written something that relates to that all of a sudden because that tune showed up in a commercial. And so it's very hard, I think, to follow these what you call it, the track of how you get ideas and what inspires you. Yes, I would say so. Some, at least some of the stuff. I like to write texts that are very rhythmic. You should be able to almost play drums, at least to the more sort of spooky or scary or sexy parts. You can almost put a beat to them. I like that kind of writing. And sometimes I know exactly what track to put on in the background. Yes. They're so different. Lindqvist is a very modern and very contemporary writer, and without him I would be nothing, because he sort of kicked the door open here and showed Swedish publishers that yes, we can do horror in this country. Everybody does not have to write crime novels. There are other ways to go. So without him I wouldn't exist. And Lovecraft, I don't know, Lovecraft is more a concept than a writer, if you know what I mean. You have to think of Lovecraft not as a writer, but an open source myth. To emulate his writing is suicide, because it's absolutely tedious the way he writes. I usually say one that writes short sentences. And then people say, what? And I say, yes, I write short sentences. Beyond that, I have no idea, actually. I'm very inspired by American sort of hard-boiled writers such as Raymond Chandler or James Ellroy. I think they have a wonderful economy to their writing and very, very poetic. But I don't know if I'm emulating them, actually. I don't know if I ever decided that, yes, it's today I'm going to be a writer. I wrote a collection of short stories, and suddenly I got paid, I got an awful lot for it, and it sort of landed in my lap that I could have this as a profession. It was not this will be my new career, this is my new way of life. It was more or less a series of accidents that led up to it. I say it's 98% work, because being inspired goes on for about 15 seconds. The short creative burst that, this is how it's gonna work. And then if you have that for 10 seconds, it will take 5 hours to sort the thing out. It's a very tedious process, and I think almost anyone who can manage that tedious process can become a writer. because it's a matter of stamina and being horribly stubborn. And if you have that stamina, I think you'll make it. I'll try to produce a certain number of pages per day. It's quite simple. It's like today I'm gonna write 2 pages. Today I'm gonna write 3 pages. Today I start every day with sort of setting a limit. I don't have any set place or time for it. I work a bit as a teacher, and I do some. I write some popular history as well, sort of for magazines and stuff. But I managed to get along actually. Ooh, it's so hard. Every time I go through the list, I fall in love with different stuff. I'm still sort of amazed by the whole concept that stuff I wrote. The oldest ideas in here are 15, 20 years old, and have sort of lived with them for all these years, and suddenly I managed to put them on paper and put them in print 5, 6 years ago, and they're still here, and they're still sort of going out and meeting new people. These stories are meeting new people. That's a very big thing about books that I hadn't quite realized before I wrote one myself. That even though you finish a story in, say, year 2005, new people will discover it 10 years later. So I haven't quite figured out that part of it yet, really. That whole magic is still working. Sort of a homage. It is a homage to the whole Lovecraftian tentacle thing. And it's because, like many other in my generation, I was exposed to the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game in the early 80s, and it was such a new word with all these weird monsters and stuff, and it's sort of it was this, like I talked about before, this concept, this universe that is so spaced out in so many ways. So of course this is my homage to it, or my addition to it as well. Like all movie projects, there are an incredibly long startup process. We're still in the game, and the latest sort of prediction is to start filming next in the summer of 2014. But that's a prediction. As anyone who's been involved with movies know is that these things take forever, and you're always waiting for someone else to get something in order or to find the right slot for something. I say I've had a lot of people who actually do not read horror, who are surprised by, and this makes me sound horribly pretentious, but yes, people find the literary qualities and the skill perhaps involved amazing enough to read stuff that they do not usually read, and that is very, 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 very flattering. People who do not read horror or genre fiction at all find this good or fascinating enough to read it. I even have the reviewer saying, I do not know if I like this at all, but I cannot stop reading. That's perhaps the best review I've ever got. Yes, of course you are. You're French. No, I do not think there's a national edge to this. from my sort of my view of the French is that you're sort of keen on a bit experimental stuff. You're curious about a bit edgy stuff. Bands like Velvet Underground has been famous in France before anyone knew about them in the States. Stuff like that. There is sort of an interest in the a bit more experimental stuff in France. At least that's my sort of picture of it. That is sort of these short stories growing into a larger story. It's still set in the same universe, but I saw her today at the reception, and 2 more books will build a larger Lovecraftian horror epic thing about a god coming back to the world and actually try to rule it. And he is trying to rule the world through this woman, that one of my characters, and she's the one we met today at the reception. So this first novel is about sort of the messenger, or this woman who is this the queen of the evil god. She turns into the queen of the evil god. It's very scary, and it's full of librarians, sex, and drugs. I've finished the next book in this sort of trilogy. I'm not supposed to say the trio thing, for my publisher doesn't like books published sort of, fantasy, books come in huge clusters. No, but I've finished the second book in this saga, which will be called A Man of Wealth and Taste, and it's finished. We are going through the editing right now. It will be out sometime next year, and I will also put out a children's book, actually. A children's book about one of these scary teachers they call for when your real teacher is sick. And in comes this monster kind of teacher. And it has been so funny to work with something else than these Lovecraftian, very moody monsters. And it's been wonderful to work with that artist, Donald Tulin. He's a real genius. Any last words? Any last words? I hope you all enjoy reading my books, and tell all your friends about them. And this is a very wonderful little universe I've created. I hope you will get lost in it. Thank you.